Hello and welcome. We're about to unpack a truly incredible story of political ambition. It's the journey of how one of the most powerful leaders on the planet rose from the absolute humblest of beginnings. Our source material lays out this narrative of struggle, vision, and some serious self-belief.
The source for this explainer kicks off with these really powerful lines of poetry. And they suggest that this right here, this perfectly captures the spirit of the man we're talking about today, Narendra Modi. It's a theme you'll see again and again, this idea of relentless determination that just runs through his entire life.
Okay, so let's get right into it. This is the big question, right? It's the central puzzle that our source material really tries to solve. A journey like this seems almost impossible, so let's break down how, according to this account, it all happened.
To really understand the leader, you have to go all the way back to the boy. So, our story starts on September 17, 1950, in a small town called Vadnagar in Gujarat. This is where it all began.
The source really paints a picture of a childhood that was defined by two things: hardship and an early sense of duty. He was the third of 6 kids in a poor family, and he actually helped his father sell tea on the Vadnagar railway platform. But even then, you could see these two major influences taking shape: the spiritual teachings of Swami Vivekananda, which he was apparently obsessed with reading, and this growing sense of nationalism. That led him to join the RSS, a Hindu nationalist volunteer group, at just 8 years old, and to serve soldiers who were passing through that station during the 1965 war.
So here's where the story takes a really fascinating turn. I mean, a conventional life of family, work, that's what was expected. But the source explains that Modi felt a totally different calling, one that meant he had to leave everything and everyone he knew behind. Think about that. At just 17, right after a marriage had been arranged for him, he makes this huge decision to leave home. According to our source, this wasn't him just running away. It was a very deliberate quest to find his purpose by diving headfirst into the spiritual and cultural heart of India.
And this really shows the scale of his journey. For 2 whole years, he crisscrossed India. He was visiting spiritual centers, staying in ashrams, and just absorbing the incredible diversity of the nation. This period, as the source portrays it, was absolutely crucial in shaping his worldview and his connection to all the different cultures of the country he would one day lead.
All right, so after that spiritual journey, Modi comes back ready for a life of service. This next phase, as our source details it, is all about discipline, hard work, and a systematic climb through the ranks of a political organization. It all kicks off with a full-time commitment to the RSS in 1971.
Now, what's really interesting here is the contrast. As a young RSS pracharak, which is basically a full-time dedicated organizer, his jobs were pretty humble. We're talking cleaning the office, making tea for senior members, and organizing at the very grassroots level. This kept him grounded in the realities of people's lives. And that same work ethic, the source argues, is what later made him a master strategist for the BJP, the political wing of the RSS.
And his climb was methodical, but it was also fast. After years of this dedicated work, the RSS moves him over to the BJP in 1985. His incredible organizational skills became obvious pretty quickly, especially in 1990. That's when he organized L.K. Advani's Rath Yatra, a huge and pretty controversial political procession that mobilized a lot of Hindu nationalist support. By 1998, his talent for strategy had shot him all the way up to the role of the party's national general secretary.
And that brings us to the next major turning point. After decades as this backroom organizer, this master strategist, Modi was suddenly thrust into the spotlight. In 2001, he goes from being a party man to the head of a whole state government.
So, taking over as Chief Minister of Gujarat was his first really big executive role. He would go on to win 3 straight elections, governing the state for more than a decade. And it was here, the source says, that he built the reputation that would eventually launch him onto the national stage.
So what was this national reputation built on? Well, according to our source, you can kind of boil it down to this one number, 10.9%. That was the average annual economic growth rate in Gujarat from 2001 to 2010 under his leadership. At the time, that was the highest of any state in the country, and it became the absolute centerpiece of his political identity.
He branded his whole approach as the Gujarat model. And as our source outlines it, this model was all about rapid economic development, agricultural reforms, and making Gujarat a super attractive place for investment. Now, it's really important to note that this period of his leadership is also highly controversial, especially concerning the 2002 riots. Our source material, though, focuses almost exclusively on this narrative of governance and efficiency, which is what brought him so much national attention.
The success and the national buzz around the Gujarat model, as it's portrayed by the source, basically became his launchpad for the biggest political prize of them all, leading the entire country. So in 2014, he runs for national office and leads his party to a massive, historic landslide victory. And then he does it again in 2019, this time with an even bigger mandate. These two huge wins really cemented his position as the most dominant political figure in India. So why does all this matter? The source suggests his incredible life story connects so deeply because it reinforces what it calls democratic faith. The idea of a boy from a tea stall reaching the highest office in the land, it makes people feel that he gets their struggles and that in a democracy, anything is truly possible. And this is a core part of how he communicates. By constantly saying that the whole country is his family, he frames his leadership as more than just a political job. It becomes this personal, familial duty, and that forges a really powerful connection with millions of voters. Once he's in power, the source portrays him as a really decisive and risk-taking leader. It points to huge economic policies like demonetization and the GST rollout, plus some major national security and constitutional moves, as proof of a leadership style that is just not afraid to make sweeping and often very controversial changes.
And the end result of this whole journey, according to this account, is his impact on the world stage. The source concludes that through his leadership, India's global profile has been lifted significantly, positioning the nation as an emerging superpower.
So there you have it. From a tea stall in Vadnagar to the center of global politics, it is a truly remarkable story as our source presents it. And it leaves us with a final thought to chew on. What does a journey like this really tell us about the forces that shape our leaders, and maybe even the possibilities that are baked into a democracy?